In the summer of 1933, a 10-year-old girl in rural Kentucky lowered a bucket into the well behind her house, hauled it up hand over hand, carried it to the kitchen, and then turned around to do it again, because it took 6 trips to fill what her family needed for a single ordinary day. There was no faucet in that house, and none in most houses like it. Getting the water a family needed every day in every season was one of the largest and least remembered labors of the Great Depression. Number 7 on this list is the reason Saturday night was the most important night of the week. Number 4 is the trip to the outhouse in January that every person dreaded. And number 2 is the quiet danger in the water itself that could take a child in a matter of days. These were the years when clean water did not come from a tap, but from a bucket, a well, and a great deal of work. This is how they managed it. They didn't have much, but they knew how to make it last. Number 8, the daily hauling of the water. For most families outside the cities and many inside them, every drop used in the house was carried there by hand. It came from a well in the yard, drawn up by a bucket on a rope or worked up by a hand pump, then carried indoors, one heavy load at a time. A single bucket weighs enough to bend a grown person sideways, and a family needed many a day for cooking, cleaning, washing, and the animals. The children hauled water before school and after. The work never stopped because the need never stopped. We turn a handle without a thought. They earned every drop. Number 7, Saturday night and the shared bath. Because every drop of bath water had to be hauled in and then heated on the stove, a full bath was far too much work to have more than once a week, and so it became a ritual. Saturday night was bath night, so the family would be clean for church in the morning. A large tub was set in the middle of the warm kitchen, and pot after pot of heated water was poured in, and then the family bathed in turn in the same water. The cleanest went first, usually the youngest, and the order went on down. So the last person stepped into water a whole family had already used. It sounds hard to us now. To them, it was simply Saturday, the price of being clean when clean was expensive. Number 6, wash day and the labor of it. If getting water was hard, washing clothes with it was harder, and it took a whole day. Monday was wash day, and it began with hauling and heating tub after tub of water. The clothes were scrubbed by hand against a ridged washboard until the dirt gave way, wrung out by hand, rinsed, wrung again, and hung to dry. A woman's hands were raw and red by the end of it, and her back ached for 2 days after. This was not a machine you loaded and walked away from. It was a full day of the hardest physical work every week, and it fell, almost always, on the women. Here is what stood behind all this labor. In the 1930s, running water in the home was not something every family had. In the cities, many homes had it, though the poorest tenements often shared a single tap or toilet among many families. But out in the country, where a great many Americans still lived, indoor plumbing was the exception, not the rule, and the electricity that would later pump water into farmhouses had not reached most of rural America yet, and would not begin to until the middle of the decade. So, for millions of families, water was not a convenience that flowed on demand. It was a heavy, daily physical thing that had to be fetched, carried, heated, and hauled back out, and the work of it shaped every single day. Now answer this before you hear the rest. If the water stopped coming from your taps tomorrow, and the only water you had was what you could carry by hand from somewhere else, how long could you keep everyone in your home clean, fed, and washed? A day? A week? Write your honest answer in the comments right now, before you hear the rest of the list. Then keep watching, because what these families did without, and did anyway, is more than most of us have ever had to imagine. They didn't have much, but they knew how to make it last. Number 5, catching the rain. A wise household never let good water fall from the sky and run away, so barrels were set at the corners of the house to catch the rain off the roof, and that soft rainwater was prized. It was gentler than the hard water from the well, and it was saved for washing hair and washing clothes, because it worked up a better lather with the little soap a family had. A full rain barrel after a good storm was a small blessing, a supply no one had to carry up from the well, and a careful family guarded it against the dry weeks when it would be needed most. Number 4. The outhouse. In every weather. There was no bathroom inside these houses, and so there was the outhouse, a small wooden structure set a little way from the home, and every trip to it was a trip outdoors. In the mild months, this was merely inconvenient. In the deep cold of a winter night, it was something every person quietly dreaded, the walk out into the freezing dark, and many a household kept a covered pail indoors for the worst of the night rather than face the journey. There was no running water to carry anything away, and keeping the outhouse decent was its own hard chore. It is one of the plainest measures of how different daily life was, that the most basic necessity of all meant a walk into the weather, day and night, all year round. Let me tell you about one of those mothers. On a farm in Tennessee in 1934, a woman organized her entire week around water, because it had to be. Monday, she washed, and it took the whole day and most of the water. She kept the buckets filled, sending the children to the well and hauling loads herself when they were at school. She saved the rinse water from the wash to scrub the floors, and the water the vegetables were rinsed in went to the garden or the animals, because water carried by hand was far too precious to use once and pour away. She was not being quaint or frugal for its own sake. She was managing a scarce and heavy resource with the skill of a quartermaster, because the health of her whole family depended on her getting it right every single day. Number 3. Using every drop twice. In a house where all the water was carried in by hand, nothing was wasted, and the same water did many jobs before it was poured out. The water that washed the dishes might then wash the floor. The water that rinsed the clothes was saved to scrub the porch. Bath water was carried out to the garden rather than dumped. A family that earned every bucket with its own arms followed each load through a whole chain of uses, wringing every bit of good from it before it was gone. It was not an idea they had to be taught. It was the plain arithmetic of a resource that cost real labor to obtain. Number 2. The danger in the water. Here is the shadow underneath this whole story, the part the pump in the yard does not show. Water carried by hand from a well or a stream was not always safe to drink. A well dug too close to the outhouse or a stream that ran past a barnyard could carry sickness that no one could see or taste. And the diseases that traveled in bad water, typhoid and dysentery and others, were real killers in those years, and they took children first and fastest. Families knew to be careful, to boil water when they feared it, to keep the well clear of anything that might foul it. But they did not always know in time, and clean-looking water could still carry death. The water was life, and now and then, through no fault of the family that carried it, the same water was the thing that took a child away. Number 1. They understood the true worth of water. When it is all added together, the hauling and the heating, the shared bath and the saved rain, and the water used 3 times over, it comes to this. These families understood the real value of water in a way a world of taps has let us forget. To them, water was not endless, and it was not free. It was heavy, it was earned, and every drop that came into the house had been carried there by someone they loved. There is a kind of wisdom in that which we have quietly lost, standing at our sinks with the tap running while we look for something else. So, how long could you last from what you answered at the start? Now you know what a day of it really took. Water hauled by hand, bucket after bucket. A bath the whole family shared on Saturday night. A full day of washing every Monday, rain caught in barrels, a walk to the outhouse in the January dark, and every drop used 2 and 3 times before it was gone. None of it was charming to the people who lived it, and not one of them looked back on hauling water in the cold as the good old days. It was heavy, endless, skilled work, most of it done by women and children, and underneath it ran a real danger that could turn the family's water against them without warning. They were the hard years. They didn't have much, but they knew how to make it last. And that's worth remembering. If your parents or grandparents grew up hauling water, or remember a well in a Saturday night bath, tell me in the comments what they told you about it. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because every week we go back inside the hardest years America ever faced and the forgotten skills the people who survived them knew.